When you start a match, you want to make sure you deploy your unit onto a road, as moving along the road is much faster than going off-road. You can use the fast move order to make sure units travel on the road, and for transport vehicles with stuff inside of them, you can use the unload at position order to do the same thing, but once they get to the position, they will, well, unload. You can also use shift clicks to give units multiple orders, and you can do this at the start of the match as well. 0-point transport vehicles will despawn once anything unloads off them, while transport vehicles that cost points will stay on the battlefield once the infantry or whatever has unloaded, and you can reload units back onto them. But make sure you don't accidentally unload your infantry halfway to the battlefield. It will be a long walk. The big red bar hovering over your unit icons isn't their HP, but in fact the measure of their suppression. You see, a more a unit gets shot at, the more suppressed that they will get, and the more suppressed that they will get will affect their combat effectiveness, mainly their accuracy. So a unit that has been highly suppressed will not be able to hit a broadside of a barn, for example. So, if a unit gets fully suppressed, for example, they will be, if it's an infantry unit, pinned down, and you'll have to use a retreat order to move them back and get them out of danger. However, if it's a vehicle, they will usually just fall back on their own by reversing and try to get out of danger in a reasonable manner. If a unit is fully suppressed and it's behind the enemy front line and an enemy unit comes close to it, that unit will be forced to surrender and it will be taken out of play. Leaders are rather important units to have on the field. As you see, any unit within the leader's aura, which is affected by the leader's veterancy, will have their veterancy increased by 1 star, and that will improve the unit's entire combat effectiveness on the field. Commanders are also extremely useful too. You can find them in the support tab. You don't get many of them, but any unit that is within the commander's aura will have a 2-star veterancy bonus, which is pretty big. And also any leader units that are in 1.5 kilometers of the commander will connect to the commander and will give the same veterancy 2-star bonus to the units within their leadership, and you can daisy chain this between multiple leaders to set up a command structure. When you want to attack an enemy position, you usually want to use the hunt order. As you see, the hunt order will allow the unit to move up to said position while stopping to engage any targets of interest that they come across. As well, units will usually try to stick to cover and foliage as they move up to said position. Certain units have radios. This is designated by a little green icon in the bottom left of the unit card. Radios are rather important as they project a range around said unit, and if an artillery unit has a radio and shoots into said position where there is radio coverage, you will have corrected shot bonuses, meaning that your artillery strikes will be extremely accurate. Sometimes your opponent can be rather annoying and counter-battery your artillery. There are really 3 ways to deal with this. The first one is to spread out your artillery guns so they're not so bunched together. The second one is to relocate your artillery guns, try to move them every few barrages or so. Or the third one is to fire back and counter-artillery the enemy artillery. Usually when artillery shoots in Steel Division, they leave a tracer on the shell. You follow the tracer back to the source, fire a ray and shot those guns up for good. There's also artillery observers, which you can get in the artillery tab in the form of ground or air-based vehicles. They project a radius around said unit, and within that radius you can call in 3 sorts of off-map artillery strikes: emergency, fire for effect, and barrage, which all have different pros and cons. Smoke is without a doubt one of the most important tools that you have at your disposal in Steel Division, and you definitely want to learn how to use it effectively. You can either get smoke from hand grenades off certain infantry units, or mainly from artillery guns. There's so many different ways that you can use smoke. I mean, it just blinds an area and blocks line of sight. So really, here's a list of all the most effective ways that you can use smoke. It's a pretty long list. There are really 2 sorts of infantry types that you really have to worry about: long-range infantry and short-range infantry. Short-range infantry usually equipped with satchel charges, SMGs, as well as flamethrowers. You mainly want to keep these guys in forests or in towns where they have a lot of cover, so they can get in close to spread their fiery or explosive or rapid fire goodness. There's also long-range infantry, which are usually machine gun teams that you find in the support tab, or just infantry with lots of bow tacks and rifles and light machine guns. You may want to keep these guys covering an open area where nothing can get too close to you, as short-range infantry will mess you up. I guess there's also mid-range infantry, could you usually argue STG squads and other carbine squads are, which kind of fill the role of both, but really more towards the short-range role. Two sorts of forests that you have to worry about in Steel Division 2, light and heavy forests. Light forests allow any unit to maneuver through them, but only gives adequate concealment and cover bonuses, while heavy forests disallow any vehicle from moving through, but they give good cover and concealment bonuses. Tanks are extremely blind in ST2. They can barely see units that are in front of them, so don't charge up tanks by themselves, as they will just get killed by a bunch of invisible anti-tank guns and Panzerfaust that you can't even see. So, to counter this, you want to use Recon. Recon are found well within the Recon tab. They usually come in infantry or vehicle forms. You always want to try to have Recon near and around your front line and whenever you try to do a push, as you can't shoot at stuff that you can't see, and you want to see them so you can shoot them. If you see a small river, your vehicles may not be able to cross it, but your infantry sure as hell can. Bunkers may seem rather annoying to deal with when you're attacking on breakthrough, but you gotta realise one thing. Bunkers can't move, so just smoke in front of them, and that is completely useless. Stick an infantry unit within a church, it can actually shoot over buildings, so it's an extremely good idea to put anti-tank rifles, snipers, or machine gun teams into churches. If you're going to use fighter planes, I highly recommend having anti-aircraft guns on the field first, before bringing in the fighters. As you see, if you get into a dogfight and it turns out not to go all that well for you, what you want to do is fly towards your lines where the anti-aircraft guns can shoot at the chasing plane, and once the chasing plane has been fully suppressed and fall back, you can then turn around your airplane and shoot him down as he's retreating. Plate trucks don't just replenish ammo, but also allow you to fix critical hits that you may have suffered on your vehicles. Just remember not to get supply trucks too close to anything or other, as if they blow up, they will cause collateral damage. All recon units do not affect the front line whatsoever, allowing you to sneak in behind enemy lines. This can be a double-edged sword, however, because recon units can't actually capture flags. By turning off automatic Winchester evacuation allows bomber planes, once they've dropped their payload, to stay on the battlefield. This is pretty useful, some bomber planes act as rather good fighters. If you're having trouble dealing with a heavy tank and you have no heavy AT to deal with it, just remember you can pretty much solve most problems by dropping off high explosives on it. The return fire command is pretty straightforward, but the efficient shot command is rather useful, as it allows you to set a gun to not shoot unless it has 40% hit chance and 40% penetration chance. This is, of course, pretty damn good for ambushing, and you can change these values within the options gameplay menu. Infantry-based units aren't just idiots, and won't just stand in the middle of the road, but are actually seek nearby cover, such as buildings or tree lines. You can turn this off if you want, however. Kill death ratio doesn't mean anything if you don't win the match, and the only way you can win a match in Steel Division is by capturing more flags than the enemy and holding onto them. So always make it your priority to try to attack flags and get those under your control, rather than just trying to make the enemy bleed.